When my daughter threatened to put me in a nursing home for refusing to host her in-laws, I decided to give them exactly what they wanted, a luxury hotel experience. But they had no idea that in my house, the Wi-Fi costs $50 a day, the pool is extra, and the checkout bill is absolutely non-negotiable. Before continuing, write where you are from or what time it is. The ink was still wet on the deed when I felt the shift. It wasn't the champagne buzz or the roar of the Pacific Ocean crashing against the cliffs below. It was the weight of the pen in my hand, heavier than the company I'd just sold, heavier than the 40 years of 18-hour days that had built it. I slid the document across the mahogany table to the notary, and just like that, I was no longer Evelyn Vance, the woman who clawed her way up from a garage startup to a tech empire. I was Evelyn Vance, sole owner of a glass and steel fortress on the edge of the world. I walked out onto the deck. The air smelled of salt and expensive freedom. Below me, the ocean was a churning, relentless blue, smashing against the rocks with a violence that felt familiar. That had been my life, smashing against obstacles until they broke. Now, I was the rock. I was 68 years old. I had the money, I had the view, and for the first time in my life, I had the silence. I poured a glass of Chardonnay, the bottle frosted and weeping in the California heat. I didn't drink to celebrate. I drank to savor. I watched the sun bleed into the horizon, turning the sky into a bruised purple bruise. This was it. The finish line. Then my phone rang. It wasn't a business line. Those were dead, severed along with my ties to the board. This was my personal cell, the number only 3 people had. I looked at the screen. Kara. A smile, reflexive and foolish, tugged at my mouth. My daughter. Calling to congratulate me. Calling to share the victory. "Hello, sweetheart," I answered, my voice thick with the warmth of the wine and the sunset. "I'm here. I actually did it." "Mom, you're there." Her voice wasn't warm. It was a shriek, high and vibrating with a manic energy that set my teeth on edge. "Send pictures immediately. I want to see the view. Is the pool as big as the listing said?" "It's beautiful, Kara," I said, leaning against the railing. "It's even better than the photos. You'll have to come visit sometime soon." "Oh, we'll be visiting," she said. And there it was. The edge. The sharp proprietary slice in her tone that cut through the maternal fuzz in my brain. "Actually, that's why I'm calling. I have the most amazing news." I gripped the stem of my wine glass tighter. "Oh?" "Todd's family," she announced, as if she were bestowing a knighthood. "They're all flying into LA for his cousin's wedding next week. And I had a brilliant idea. Why should they waste money on some stuffy hotel when you have that massive house just sitting there?" My stomach dropped. It wasn't a slow descent. It was a free fall. "Kara," I said, my voice carefully neutral, "I just got here. I haven't even unpacked. I was planning to spend the first few weeks settling in. Alone." "Don't be silly, Mom," she scoffed. A dismissive, airy sound. "You have 8 bedrooms? You can't possibly use all that space. It's selfish, really. Besides, Margot is dying to see Malibu." Margot, Todd's mother, a woman who wore animal print like armor and wielded passive aggression like a scalpel. The thought of her in my sanctuary, criticizing my furniture and judging my wine, made my skin crawl. "Kara," I said, and the CEO voice, the one that had made grown men sweat in boardrooms, began to bleed through. "That is very thoughtful of you, but it's not possible. The timing is bad. The house isn't ready for guests." "What do you mean, not ready?" Her voice snapped tight. "It's a brand new turnkey estate. We're not asking for the Ritz. We're family. We'll be there tomorrow afternoon, all 10 of us." "10?" I repeated. The number was a physical blow. 10 people? Tomorrow? Yes, 10. Todd, me, Margot, Todd's brothers, the wives, the kids. It'll be fun. A real family reunion. No, I said. The word was a stone wall. No, Kara. You're welcome to visit, you and Todd. But I am not hosting a wedding party of 10 people less than 24 hours after moving in. Silence. A stunned, static hiss on the line. I had done the unthinkable. I had told her no. When she spoke again, the manic cheer was gone. Her voice was low, venomous, a sound I hadn't heard since her teenage years when I refused to buy her a car she hadn't earned. I don't think you understand, Mother. This isn't a request. I've already told them yes. Margot is so excited. Are you really going to make me call my mother-in-law and tell her she's not good enough for your precious beach house? Do you have any idea how that makes me look? How you look is not my primary concern right now, I said, my hand shaking slightly. Not from fear, but from a sudden Arctic rage. Fine, she spat. Be that way. Be the selfish, difficult old woman everyone says you are. But you should really think about the future, Mom. You're all alone in that big, empty glass box. Accidents happen. You're not getting any younger. I froze. The ocean roared below, but the sound was suddenly muffled, distant. Are you threatening me, Kara? I'm just stating facts, she purred. It was a cruel, calculated sound. If you find family to be such a burden, maybe you shouldn't be living alone. I was looking at real estate in your area. I saw a lovely facility just down the street, the Malibu Meadows Senior Living Facility. Very secure, lots of nurses. If you can't manage a family visit, maybe it's time we looked into assisted living. The line went dead. I stood there, the phone pressed to my ear, the dial tone buzzing like a frantic insect. A nursing home. My daughter, the child whose tuition I had paid, whose down payment I had gifted, whose debts I had quietly erased, had just weaponized my own mortality against me. She wasn't worried about my safety. She was using my fear of aging, my fear of losing control, to blackmail me into providing a free luxury vacation for her in-laws. I looked at the wine in my glass. A minute ago, it had tasted like victory. Now, it tasted like ash. I walked to the edge of the deck. Below, the dark water swirled around the jagged rocks. I tipped the glass and watched the expensive golden liquid splash into the dirt of a planter box. She thought I was weak. She thought I was a lonely old woman who would fold at the first sign of conflict to keep the peace. She thought the threat of a nursing home would make me cower. She had forgotten who I was. I wasn't just a grandmother. I was a shark. I had eaten competitors alive for breakfast for 40 years. I didn't build an empire by letting people walk over me. I built it by seeing the landscape, identifying the threat, and neutralizing it with extreme prejudice. I turned back to the house. The warm, golden light spilling from the floor-to-ceiling windows no longer looked inviting. It looked like a stage. She wanted a nursing home? No. She wanted a hotel. She wanted a luxury experience. Fine, I whispered to the empty air. You want a hotel? I'll give you a hotel. I walked inside, my heels clicking sharp and hard on the marble. The time for peaceful retirement was over. It was time for war. I didn't go to sleep. Sleep was for people who hadn't just been threatened with institutionalization by their own flesh and blood. I went to my office. The room was minimal, sterile, a glass box suspended over the coastline. I sat at the desk, the leather chair creaking as I leaned back, and stared at the dual monitors. My reflection stared back. Hard eyes, a set jaw. The Evelyn who baked cookies was dead. The CEO was back in the chair. I picked up my phone and dialed the one number that mattered. Sasha, I said the moment the line connected. It was 10 p.m. I knew she was awake. Sasha didn't sleep unless she scheduled it. Evelyn? Her voice was crisp, alert. Is everything all right? The security system shows you're secure. The perimeter is secure, I said, my voice cold. But we have an internal threat. I need you to activate the estate management protocol. Level 5. A pause. Level 5 is the hostile takeover defense, Evelyn. Who is the target? My daughter and a regiment of 9 in-laws. They arrive tomorrow at 3:00 p.m. I could hear the smile in her voice. I'll have the team there by 700. What's the play? The play, I said, looking at the empty spreadsheet on my screen, is hotel hell, but with 5-star wrapping paper. We are going to give them exactly what they asked for, a fully staffed luxury experience. But we are going to operate under strict commercial guidelines. I want policies, I want fees, I want contracts. Understood, Sasha said. I'll bring the uniforms, the black ones, severe. Perfect. And Sasha, print the welcome packets on the heaviest cardstock you can find. I want them to feel expensive. Consider it done. We hung up. I turned to the computer. For the next 6 hours, I didn't move. I typed, I designed, I calculated. The document taking shape on my screen was a masterpiece of bureaucratic cruelty. I created a logo, a stylized EV Estates. Elegant, corporate, cold. I drafted a welcome letter that dripped with passive-aggressive hospitality. We are delighted to host your party and are committed to ensuring your stay is a memorable one. To maintain the exclusive nature of our property, we ask that all guests adhere to the following policies. Then came the rules. Rule 1. No footwear inside the main residence. Rule 2. No wet swimwear on indoor furniture. $500 cleaning fee per violation. Rule 3. Kitchen is for staff use only. Rule 4. Quiet hours, 10 p.m. to 8 a.m. Rule 5. The master wing is the private residence of the owner, strictly off limits. And then the piece de resistance, the service charges. I pulled up a spreadsheet and began to monetize their entitlement. I knew Margot. I knew she wouldn't be able to resist the amenities. Wi-Fi access, $50 per day per device. Infinity pool and spa package, $150 per person per day. Home theater access, $200 per screening. Wine cellar, $1,000 corkage fee per bottle opened. Laundry service, $25 per item. I stared at the numbers. They were exorbitant. They were insulting. They were perfect. I hit send, emailing the files to Sasha's secure server. Then I stood up and began to prep the battlefield. I walked through the main living area. I removed the frame photo of Kara and me from the mantel, the one from her graduation where I looked so proud and she looked so expectant. I put it in a drawer. I cleared the coffee table of my favorite art books. I took the throw blankets that I loved, the soft cashmere ones, and locked them in the linen closet. The house began to change. It lost its warmth. It became a lobby, beautiful, impressive, and utterly devoid of soul. I moved to the master wing. This was the most important tactical position. The wing contained my bedroom, my library, and my private gym. It was separated from the main house by a set of heavy, double oak doors. I stepped inside and closed the doors. I turned the heavy deadbolt. Click. I tested the handle. Locked. I went to the small keypad on the wall and punched in a new code. The electronic lock engaged with a satisfying mechanical whir. Then I went to the guest wing. The West Wing, as I'd renamed it in the packet. It was a long hallway with 4 bedrooms. They were nice rooms, certainly, better than any hotel they could afford. But they weren't the room. They didn't have the panoramic ocean view. They didn't have the fireplace. They looked out over the garden and the garage. I went to the smallest room at the end of the hall. the one Kara had so generously assigned to me. It was a perfectly adequate room for a teenager or a nanny. A single queen bed, a small window. I placed a small suitcase on the bed. Inside were some old clothes I didn't wear anymore. It was a prop, a decoy. By the time the sun began to bleed gray light into the sky, the house was ready. At 7 a.m. sharp, a white unmarked van crunched up the gravel driveway. Sasha stepped out. She wasn't wearing her usual designer suit. She was wearing a severe black dress with a high collar, her hair pulled back in a bun so tight it looked painful. She looked like a headmistress from a Gothic novel. Behind her, 4 staff members, actors she kept on retainer for events, spilled out. They were dressed in identical black uniforms with the EV logo embroidered on the chest. They carried clipboards, earpieces, and a palpable air of judgment. "Good morning, Evelyn," Sasha said, her voice devoid of warmth. She was already in character. "The packets are printing, the signage is being deployed." "Excellent," I said, handing her a set of keys. "I want signs on every door. Staff only. Private residence. Guest wing. Make it look official." "And the kitchen?" she asked. "Clear the counters," I commanded. "Lock the pantry. Put out a pitcher of iced tea and a plate of plain sugar cookies. That is the complimentary welcome package. Anything else is à la carte." We worked in silence for the next few hours. The transformation was total. We installed velvet ropes across the entrance to the master wing. We placed small, tasteful placards with prices on the minibar in the guest lounge. We put scratchy, industrial white towels in the guest bathrooms, removing the Egyptian cotton ones. By noon, the house felt cold. The air conditioning was set to a brisk 68 degrees. The music playing softly over the speakers wasn't my usual jazz. It was generic, royalty-free lobby ambiance, a looping, soulless piano track. I retreated to my library in the master wing. It had a unique feature, a one-way glass panel that looked down into the foyer. I could see everything, but they couldn't see me. I sat in my leather chair, a cup of hot tea in my hand, and checked the security monitors. 3:15 p.m. Dust rose on the long driveway. 2 massive black SUVs, the kind that scream rental upgrade, appeared around the bend. They were driving too fast. My heart hammered against my ribs, not from fear, but from the adrenaline of the hunt. The trap was set. The bait was laid. "Showtime, Sasha," I whispered into my headset. "Copy that, madam." Her voice crackled in my ear. "Target is on sight." The SUV skidded to a halt in front of the portico. Doors flew open before the engines even cut out. It was like watching a clown car explode, if the clowns were entitled suburbanites wearing too much designer denim. The noise hit first, shouting, laughing, the shrieking of children. Kara was the first out. She stepped onto the driveway, wearing a wide-brimmed hat and oversized sunglasses, looking every inch the celebrity she pretended to be on Instagram. She threw her arms out, gesturing to the house as if she had built it herself with her own 2 manicured hands. "Welcome to paradise," she screamed. Behind her, Todd climbed out, looking already exhausted. Then came the rest. Margot, Jason's mother, in a bright orange caftan that assaulted the eyes. Rick, the brother, already holding a beer can. His wife. 3 kids who immediately began sprinting across my manicured lawn, stomping on the lavender borders. They didn't grab their bags. They just left the trunks open, piling luggage on the gravel, assuming the invisible elves of the service industry would handle it. Kara led the charge to the front door. She didn't knock. She grabbed the handle and threw it open, sweeping into the foyer with the confidence of a conqueror. "Mom, we're here. Get the wine ready." She stopped dead. The foyer wasn't empty. It wasn't occupied by her doting, apron-wearing mother. Sasha stood in the center of the marble floor. She was a statue in black. Her hands were clasped behind her back. Flanking her were two of the male staff members, looking like bouncers at a funeral home. The silence that fell over the group was instantaneous and profound. The kids stopped running. Margot stopped adjusting her caftan. Rick lowered his beer. Kara said, her smile faltering. She took off her sunglasses. Who are you? Sasha stepped forward. Her movement was fluid, precise. She offered a slight stiff bow, not of subservience, but of protocol. Good afternoon, madam, Sasha said. Her voice was smooth, cool, and completely unbothered. I am Ms. Alvarez, the estate manager. Welcome to Lena Vance Estates. We have been expecting you. Kara blinked. Estate manager? What are you talking about? Where is my mother? Madam Evelyn is in residence, Sasha replied. However, to ensure a seamless experience for your large party, she has retained my firm to manage the logistics of your stay. Your firm? Margot boomed, pushing her way to the front. What is this nonsense? We're family. We don't need a firm. We need a drink. Of course, madam, Sasha said. She didn't flinch. But first, standard check-in procedures must be followed, she snapped her fingers. The two male staff members stepped forward, each holding a stack of the thick, glossy black envelopes I had designed the night before. Check in? Kara laughed, a nervous, high-pitched sound. Okay, Mom's playing a joke. Very funny. Haha. Where is she? This is not a joke, madam, Sasha said. Her eyes locked onto Kara's. Madam Evelyn values organization. These packets contain your room assignments, access keys, and the schedule of estate policies. The staff began handing out the packets. They were heavy. They felt official. The EV logo was embossed in gold foil on the front. Margot took hers, looking at it like it was a dirty diaper. I don't need a packet. I need the master bedroom. Kara said we have the ocean suite. I'm afraid there has been a misunderstanding, Sasha said smoothly. The master wing is the private residence of the owner. It is secured and off limits. What? Kara screeched. No, that's not right. I told her. Please refer to your welcome packet for your room assignment. Sasha cut her off. Your party has been assigned the West Wing. It is adequate. The way she said adequate made it sound like a disease. Margot ripped open her envelope. I watched from the glass above as her eyes scanned the first page. Her jaw went slack. House policies? She read aloud, her voice rising. No wet bathing suits on indoor furniture. $500 cleaning fee. Is she insane? Keep reading, I whispered to myself. Rick had opened his. Hey, it says here, Wi-Fi access, $50 per day per device. What the hell? Is this a joke? And look at this, Margot shouted, waving a sheet of paper. Guest contribution schedule. Tuesday, kitchen duty, Margot Jennings. I'm not doing kitchen duty. I'm a guest. The foyer erupted. Everyone was shouting at once. They were waving the cardstock in the air, pointing fingers at Sasha, demanding to see me. This is ridiculous, Kara yelled, her face flushing red. My mother would never do this. You're fired. Get out of my way. She tried to push past Sasha toward the living room. Sasha didn't move. She simply shifted her weight, blocking the path with a wall of professional indifference. I cannot be fired by you, madam, Sasha said, her voice cutting through the noise. I do not work for you. I work for the estate, and the estate's policies are non-negotiable. I want to see my mother, Kara screamed. Madam Evelyn is currently indisposed, Sasha lied beautifully. She requests that you settle into your assigned rooms. Luggage assistance is available for a gratuity. Otherwise, you are free to transport your own bags. Gratuity? Rick sputtered. You want a tip? Standard service rates apply, Sasha said. She checked her watch. Dinner service is not included in your package, but I believe there is a lovely taco stand about 3 miles down the highway. The kitchen here closes at 8 p.m. sharp. She gestured to the hallway leading away from the ocean, away from the light, toward the garage. If you will follow me, she said, I will show you to your quarters. It wasn't a question. It was a command. The family stood there, fuming, confused, holding their heavy black envelopes. They looked at the closed double doors of the master wing. They looked at the unsmiling staff. Then slowly, defeated by the sheer bureaucratic weight of the situation, they picked up their carry-ons. This is insane, Kara hissed to Todd. She's lost her mind. Just let's go to the room, Todd mumbled, looking terrified of Sasha. We'll sort it out later. I watched them file down the hallway, a procession of the defeated. They had expected a palace. They were getting a boarding house, and the meter was about to start running. The West Wing was nice. I decorated it myself. But compared to the soaring 30-foot ceilings of the main house, it felt compact. The hallway was narrow. The view was of the beautifully manicured hedges and the top of the Mercedes in the driveway. I switched my monitor feed to the camera in the West Wing hallway. Sasha stopped at the first door. Mr. and Mrs. Jennings, she said to Margot and her husband. Suite A. Margot pushed past her and threw the door open. She marched inside, expecting a ballroom. She stopped. It's small, she said. Her voice echoed into the hallway. Where's the balcony? Where's the jacuzzi tub? This suite features a standard soaking tub, Sasha said, and a lovely view of the hydrangeas. Margot turned, her face purple. I was promised the ocean. I can't even see the water from here. The ocean is visible from the common deck, Sasha said. Access fees apply. Sasha moved down the hall. She deposited the brothers and their families in the other 2 rooms. Then she led Kara and Todd to the end of the hall, the last door. And for you, madam, Sasha said, opening the door to the smallest room. Kara stepped inside. It was the room she had told me to take, the nanny room. You have got to be kidding me, Kara breathed. She spun around. There's one bed, a queen. Todd is 6'2". We can't sleep in a queen. It was the only remaining accommodation, Sasha said, given the size of your party. My mother has a king bed, Kara shouted. She's one person. Why can't we have that room? As I said, Sasha repeated, boring into her, that is the owner's residence. This is the guest room. She handed Kara a single metal key, not a key card, an old-fashioned, heavy metal key on a ring that said Room 4. Enjoy your stay, Sasha said. The pool deck opens in 10 minutes. Please remember the towel policy. 1 towel per guest per day. Replacement fee is $25. Sasha turned and walked away, her heels clicking on the hardwood. Kara slammed the door so hard the camera shook. I took a sip of my tea. Phase 1 complete. They were contained. Now for Phase 2, the upsell. I knew they wouldn't stay in their rooms. They were too entitled, too restless, and they were thirsty. 20 minutes later, the door to the guest wing opened. The kids burst out first, already in bathing suits. They didn't care about the rooms. They saw the blue shimmer of the infinity pool through the glass doors of the living room. Pool! One of them screamed. They ran through the lobby, ignoring the no running sign. Rick and the other brother followed, carrying towels they had clearly raided from the bathroom. They hit the deck. The Pacific Ocean stretched out before them, a vast expanse of glittering blue. It was breathtaking. Now this is more like it, Rick said, dropping his towel on a pristine white lounger. Who cares about the room? We'll spend all day out here. He looked around. Hey, service. One of the waiters, A young man named David stepped out from the shadows of the cabana. He held a notepad. "Yes, sir." "Get us some drinks," Rick commanded. "Beers for the guys, wine for the ladies. And the kids want— What do you want?" "Pina coladas," the kids screamed. "Virgin ones." "Yeah, 6 virgin pina coladas," Rick said. "And keep 'em coming." "Certainly, sir," David said. He pulled a pen from his pocket. "May I have your room number for the charge?" "Room 2, Rick said, waving his hand. "Whatever. Put it on the tab." David wrote it down. He didn't blink. He didn't warn them. He just wrote. 6 ex-virgin. Pina colada, so a 25 each, winning $150. 3 ex craft beer, 15 each, and 45 Billionaire. House Chardonnay or $35 each, and 100 file. David walked to the outdoor bar. I watched him mix the drinks. He used the fresh pineapple. He used the premium mixers. He garnished them with little umbrellas. The family settled in. Margot came out a few minutes later, wearing a swimsuit that defied physics and good taste. She lowered herself into the hot tub. "Ah," she sighed, closing her eyes. "Finally. This is what I deserve." She didn't see the small sign next to the hot tub controls. Spa activation, $50 hour. Kara and Todd were the last to emerge. Kara looked furious, but she had changed into a white bikini and was holding her phone. She posed by the edge of the pool, sucking in her stomach, angling for the perfect selfie with the ocean backdrop. She snapped a photo. Then she looked at her phone, frowning. "What the hell?" she muttered. "There's no signal." She looked around. "Hey, you!" She pointed at David. "What's the Wi-Fi password? My data isn't working out here." David paused, holding a tray of expensive drinks. "The network is EV guests are secure, madam. When you connect, a splash page will appear. You can authorize the $50 daily charge there." $50? Kara shrieked. "For Wi-Fi!" "That's robbery." "It is a satellite connection, madam," David said calmly. "High speed. Very reliable." Kara stared at him. She looked at her phone. She looked at the view she desperately wanted to post to Instagram to prove to her friends that she was living the high life. She gritted her teeth. I saw her thumb jab the screen. Authorized, chaching. The afternoon wore on. They drank. They splashed. They used the towels. They ordered snacks, bowls of truffle popcorn, $20, plates of fruit, 45. They were consuming my resources like locusts, assuming that put it on the tab meant mom pays for it. They had no idea that the tab was a legally binding document. At 5 p.m., Kara found the wine fridge in the outdoor cabana. It was glass-fronted, displaying my collection of vintage French wines. She opened the door. "Ooh, Dom Perignon," she cooed, pulling out a bottle of the 2008 vintage. "Now we're talking. Mom must have left this for us." She popped the cork. Foam spilled over her hand. She laughed, pouring it into plastic cups for the adults. I winced. That bottle was worth $300, but the corkage fee— oh, the corkage fee was where the real pain lived. I typed a quick message to Sasha. "Add the Dom to the bill. Apply the corkage fee. Strict enforcement." "Copy," Sasha replied. The sun began to set. The sky turned fire orange. The family was loud, drunk, and happy. They had forgotten the small rooms. They had forgotten the rules. They were winning, or so they thought. At 7 p.m., the mood on the deck was boisterous. Rick was telling a loud, boring story about his jet ski. Margot was asleep in a lounger. Kara was scrolling through her phone, undoubtedly counting the likes on her $50 photo. Sasha emerged from the house. She held a silver tray. On it sat 2 crisp white envelopes. She walked straight to the table where they were gathered. The music seemed to dip, the air growing heavy with anticipation. "Excuse me," Sasha said. Rick looked up, grinning. "More drinks?" "Yeah, bring us another round." "Not at this time, sir," Sasha said. Management policy requires a daily settlement of all incidental charges by 7 p.m. to avoid any unpleasant surprises at checkout. She placed one envelope in front of Rick. She placed the second in front of Kara. "What is this?" Margot asked, waking up. "The bill, madam," Sasha said. Rick laughed. "The bill? Good one. Evelyn's got jokes." He ripped open the envelope. He pulled out the single sheet of paper. He squinted at it in the dim light. His smile vanished. It didn't fade. It was wiped off his face. "What the—" he choked. $600? "What?" his wife shrieked. She grabbed the paper. "Pool access fees. 6 adults, 3 children are $150 each. Warrant $350, she read, her voice trembling. Beverage service, $400. Snack service, $200. This is over $2,000, Rick shouted, standing up so fast his chair scraped loudly against the teak. "For 3 hours? Are you out of your mind?" "The rates were clearly listed in your welcome packet," Sasha said, unblinking. "You signed the acknowledgement when you accepted the keys." "I didn't sign anything," Rick yelled. "Possession of the key constitutes acceptance of the terms," Sasha quoted. "It's in the fine print." Kara was staring at her envelope. She hadn't opened it yet. Her hands were shaking. "Open it, madam," Sasha said softly. Kara tore the flap. She pulled out the bill. It had one line item. Vintage champagne, bottle charge, $300 corkage fee, unauthorized opening, $1,000 total $1,300. Kara made a sound like a dying balloon, a squeak of pure pressurized horror. $1,000, she whispered, for opening a bottle of wine, my mother's wine. "The wine cellar is a controlled inventory," Sasha said. "The corkage fee is standard for high-value vintages opened without a sommelier present." "I am not paying this," Margot boomed, struggling out of her chair. "This is robbery. This is extortion. I'm going to call the police." "You are welcome to do so," Sasha said. "However, I should inform you that theft of services is a felony in the state of California. If the bill is not settled, we will be forced to involve the authorities." "Theft?" Kara screeched. She stood up, her eyes wild. "This is my house. Well, my mother's house. I can't steal from my own mother." "Legally," Sasha said. "You are a tenant, and you are in arrears." Kara crumpled the bill in her fist. She threw it at Sasha. The paper bounced harmlessly off Sasha's black dress. "I'm done with you," Kara hissed. "I'm done with this little game. Where is she? Where is my mother?" "Madam Evelyn is in the master wing," Sasha said. "However, quiet hours are approaching." "Screw quiet hours," Kara yelled. She turned to the group. "I'm going to fix this. Mom is having a breakdown or something. I'm going to go talk some sense into her." She stormed toward the house, her bare feet slapping against the deck. "Kara, wait!" Todd called, but she was gone. I watched on the monitor as she tore through the living room, past the velvet ropes, and marched straight up to the double oak doors of the master wing. She grabbed the handles. She yanked, locked. She yanked again, harder, rattling the heavy wood in its frame. "Mom!" she screamed, pounding her fist against the door. "Mom! Open up! This isn't funny anymore! Open the door!" Inside the library, I sat in silence. I could hear the faint thud-thud-thud of her fists, muffled by the soundproofing. I took a sip of my tea. "Sasha," I said into the headset, "let her bang for 5 minutes. Let her feel the door. Then, cut the power to the guest wing." "Copy," Sasha said. I watched Kara pound on the door, her face twisted in an ugly, entitled rage. She looked like a child who had been told no for the first time in her life. And in a way, she was. The banging stopped, not because she gave up, but because the hallway went black. I sat in the library watching the thermal feed on my monitor. The guest wing, or the West Wing, as the billable entity was known, plunged into darkness. The air conditioning, which had been humming a polite, expensive tune, shuddered and died. Power failure? Sasha's voice was cool in my ear. Circuit overload, I replied, taking a sip of chamomile tea. It seems the West Wing infrastructure wasn't designed for 10 people charging 20 devices simultaneously. Safety protocols engaged. On the screen, I saw the glow of cell phone flashlights flicking on like fireflies in a jar. What happened? Rick's voice, muffled by the walls but amplified by his outrage, echoed through the house. The lights! The AC! It's pitch black in here, Margot screamed. I'm in the tub. I can't see a thing. I watched Kara, a heat signature of pure fury, kick the master wing door one last time before retreating into the shadows. She stomped back down the hall, her flashlight beam swinging violently. Mom's cut the power, she hissed as she reached the group huddled in the lobby, which was now just a dark hallway. She's actually crazy. She's trying to smoke us out. I'm sweating already, Rick complained. It's going to be 80 degrees in those rooms tonight, and my phone is at 12%. I can't charge it. Use the outlet in the hall, his wife suggested. Dead, Rick snapped. Everything is dead. We're leaving, Margot announced, wrapping a towel around herself as she emerged from the bathroom, dripping water on the hardwood floor. I am not staying in a sauna. We are going to a hotel. We can't, Kara said, her voice tight. I checked. The wedding is this weekend. Everything in Malibu is booked solid or costs $2,000 a night. So what? Margot snapped. Your mother has plenty of room. We'll just sleep in the living room. It's cooler there. She began to march toward the main house, the cordoned-off sanctuary where the AC was still purring. Sasha stepped out of the shadows. She held a high-powered flashlight, shining it directly onto the floor in front of Margot's feet. Stop, Sasha said. The single word was a physical barrier. Margot flinched, shielding her eyes. Get that light out of my face. We're going to the living room. The power is out back here. The West Wing is experiencing a localized outage due to excessive demand, Sasha stated, her voice devoid of sympathy. Maintenance has been notified. They will address it in the morning. Morning? Kara shrieked. We can't sleep in the dark until morning. Emergency glow sticks are available in the safety kits located under the sink, Sasha said. As for the main house, it is a secure zone. Guests are not permitted after hours. We're hungry, Rick's wife whined. The kids were crying now, a low, miserable sound. We haven't eaten since lunch. The taco stand is closed. The kitchen is closed, Sasha reminded them. There's food in there, Rick said, eyeing the shadowed outline of the gourmet kitchen beyond the velvet ropes. I saw a fridge. I saw a pantry. We're family. We're taking some food. He moved past Margot, stepping over the velvet rope. This was it. The rebellion. They weren't just complaining anymore. They were looting. Sir, Sasha said, her voice dropping an octave. I would advise against that. Rick ignored her. He reached for the handle of the massive Sub-Zero refrigerator. Bip! A piercing alarm shattered the silence. Rick jumped back, clutching his chest. The refrigerator door remained locked. Tampering with secured assets triggers the silent alarm, Sasha said, checking her clipboard. And incurs a penalty fee. She scribbled on the paper. The scratching sound was louder than the alarm in the sudden silence. Penalty? Rick shouted. I'm trying to feed my kids. There is a vending machine in the garage, Sasha said. It accepts credit cards. The humiliation was absolute. The guests of the Vance estate were being directed to a garage vending machine, like truckers at a rest stop. Rick looked at Kara. His face was red, sweaty, and twisted with blame. You said this was a luxury villa, Kara. You said we'd be eating fresh seafood on the deck. I I didn't know, Kara stammered. You didn't know your own mother was a psychopath? Margot hissed. We are going to the garage. I want a Diet Coke. And you, she poked a manicured finger into Kara's chest, are paying for it. I watched them shuffle out the side door toward the garage, their flashlight beams bobbing in the dark. They looked like refugees from a failed coup. The garage camera showed them gathered around the glowing light of the vending machine. It was an old machine I'd bought for the staff break room years ago. It was stocked with stale chips and generic soda. Rick punched a button. The machine whirred. Insert card. He pulled out his wallet and swiped. Declined. What? He swiped again. Declined. It's not working. He kicked the machine. Sasha's voice came over the garage intercom system. Please note, the machine places a $50 pre-authorization hold for each transaction to cover potential damages. If your card limit is strained, the transaction will fail. Rick roared, a sound of pure, impotent rage. He turned to Kara. Give me your card, now. Kara fumbled for her purse. She swiped her card. A bag of pretzels fell. Total cost, $3.50 plus the $50 hold. They sat on the concrete floor of the garage, eating stale pretzels in their designer clothes, surrounded by my luxury cars. The Bentley gleamed under the fluorescent lights, mocking them. I turned off the monitor in the library. The first battle was won. But the war wasn't over. Kara was desperate, and desperate people did stupid things. At 8:00 a.m. the next morning, I sat on the deck with my coffee. The power to the guest wing had been restored at 7:59 a.m. The sun was shining. The ocean was sparkling. The door to the deck flew open. Kara marched out. She hadn't slept. Her mascara was smudged, her hair frizzy from the heat. She wasn't wearing a bikini today. She was wearing a power suit, or what passed for one in her influencer wardrobe. She walked straight up to my table. She slammed a piece of paper down next to my coffee cup. I am done playing, she said, her voice shaking with exhaustion and rage. I want to speak to the manager. The real manager. Not that robot in the black dress. I looked up, adjusting my sunglasses. Good morning, Kara. Did you sleep well? Cut the crap, Mom, she snapped. I know what you're doing. You're trying to punish me. But you can't do this. There are laws, tenant laws, hospitality laws. I looked it up on my phone, which cost me $50 to use, by the way. You agreed to the terms, I said calmly. I didn't agree to be starved and roasted in the dark, she shouted. I want to see the contract. I want to see the legal entity that owns this place, because I'm going to sue them. And if it's you, I'm going to sue you. I smiled, a cold, sharp smile. You want to see the management? I asked. Yes. Very well, I said. I stood up. Follow me. I led her not to the kitchen, not to the living room, but to the library. We walked in silence. I swiped my keycard at the velvet rope, then again at the double oak doors. They clicked open with a heavy, expensive sound. Kara stepped into the master wing and stopped. The air here was different, scented with lavender and conditioned to a perfect crisp cool. The hallway was lined with art she recognized from my old office, pieces worth more than Todd's entire career. We reached the end of the hall. I placed my hand on the biometric scanner. The hidden door to the library slid open. Kara gasped. It was a 2-story cathedral of books, spiral staircases, floor-to-ceiling glass, looking out over the wildest part of the coast, leather chairs that swallowed you whole. It was a room built for a titan. Sit, I said, gesturing to the guest chair. It was lower than mine, a classic power move. Kara sat. She looked small in the room. She looked around, her eyes wide, taking in the wealth she had assumed would one day be hers by default. You wanted to speak to management, I said, settling into my chair behind the massive glass desk. I am the primary shareholder of the holding company that manages this estate. Speak. Kara straightened her spine. She tried to summon the entitlement that had fueled her arrival, but it flickered in the face of this absolute power. This isn't right, she began, her voice trembling. You're treating us like animals. The bills, the rules, the fees. Mom, we're your family. Margot is 70 years old. You charged her $65 for juice. Correction, I said, sliding a file across the desk. The estate charged her. I simply paid the invoice for the initial stocking of the pantry. Stop it. She slammed her hand on the desk. Stop hiding behind this estate thing. It's you. It's always you. You're doing this because I threatened the nursing home, aren't you? You're being petty. I leaned forward. The silence in the room grew heavy, pressurized. Petty? I repeated softly. Kara, you threatened to lock me away. You threatened to strip me of my agency because I inconvenienced your vacation plans. You looked at me, your mother, the woman who built the world you stand on, and you saw a burden, a resource to be mined and then discarded. I didn't mean it, she whispered. The lie was weak. You did, I said, and that is why we are here. You wanted a transaction, Kara. You wanted to trade on our relationship for a free venue. You wanted the perks of being my daughter without the respect that is supposed to come with it. I opened the file in front of me. So, I continued, my voice hardening into steel, I have decided to honor your request. I have professionalized our relationship. Since you view me as an asset, I will operate as one. I pulled out a document. It was the guest services contract. You asked about the legal entity, I said. The house is owned by a blind trust. The operations are managed by Vance Global Asset Management. The staff, the fees, the policies, they are all standard operating procedure for our corporate properties. You can stop them, she pleaded. Just tell Sasha to stop. Tear up the bill. I can't, I lied. It was the most beautiful lie I had ever told. You see, the trust is irrevocable. The management contract is ironclad. I am merely the resident. If I intervene, I violate the fiduciary duty of the trust. I could lose the house. Her eyes widened. You could lose the house? If I allow unauthorized, non-paying guests to degrade the asset? Absolutely, I said. My lawyers are very strict. They view freeloaders as a liability. I pushed a business card across the desk. It was blank, except for a phone number and the words legal department. If you have a dispute regarding the bill, I said, you are welcome to call them. Their retainer is $1,000 per hour, and they bill in 15-minute increments. Kara stared at the card. She realized the trap. She couldn't appeal to my heart because she had broken it. She couldn't appeal to my wallet because I had hidden it behind a wall of bureaucracy. So, she swallowed hard. We have to pay? The $2,000? Actually, I tapped the computer screen. With the after-hours surcharge for the garage incident, the tampering fee for the pantry alarm, and the morning's coffee service, the current balance is $3,450. Kara went pale. And checkout is at 11:02 a.m., I added. Late checkout incurs a full day's rate of $5,000. She looked at the clock. It was 9:15 a.m. We have to go, she whispered. Panic seized her. We have to go now. I believe that would be wise, I said, picking up my book. Please ensure the towels are returned. The inventory count is strict. Kara stood up. She looked at me one last time, not as her mother, but as a terrifying stranger she had accidentally woken up. You're enjoying this, she said, her voice thick with tears. I am simply enjoying my retirement, I replied without looking up. Close the door on your way out. The implosion wasn't instantaneous. It was a cascading failure, like a building collapsing floor by floor. I watched from the library window as Kara ran back to the guest wing. She didn't walk, she sprinted. She burst into the west wing, where the family was huddled in the hallway, eating the remaining stale pretzels and complaining about the water pressure. I couldn't hear the words, but I didn't need to. The body language told the story. Kara waving the bill, Margot clutching her chest, Rick throwing his hands in the air. I switched the audio feed on. 3,450? Margot screamed. It was a sound that probably frightened the seagulls 2 miles away. For one night? In a closet? With no power? We have to leave, Kara was pleading. Mom says the late fee is $5,000 if we're not out by 11. I'm not paying a dime, Rick shouted. You invited us. You said, come to Mom's beach house. It's free. It's amazing. You lied to us, Kara. I didn't know, Kara cried. She set me up. She set you up? Margot advanced on her daughter-in-law. You told me you had her wrapped around your finger. You told me she was a senile old lady who would do whatever you said. You brought us here to be humiliated. We're leaving, Todd said, his voice surprisingly firm. He was holding his phone. I just checked the bank account. Kara, there's a pending charge for $500 for cleaning services. What did you do? I spilled some wine on the rug when the lights went out, she sobbed. You idiot, Rick yelled. That comes out of the joint account? That's my money too. Everyone pack, Margot commanded. Now, before that witch charges us for breathing the air. The scramble was chaotic and undignified. Suitcases were thrown open. Clothes were shoved inside in tangled heaps. The kids were crying because they wanted to go back to the pool. No pool, Rick shouted at his son. That pool cost $150 just to look at. Get in the car. They dragged the luggage down the hallway, the wheels clattering loudly on the hardwood. They didn't wait for the staff. They hauled their own bags, sweating, swearing, tripping over each other. They burst out the front door into the blinding morning sun. Sasha was waiting by the SUVs. She held a clipboard. Checking out so soon? She asked pleasantly. Move, Rick snarled, shoving a suitcase into the trunk of the rental. I just need to finalize the billing, Sasha said. The credit card on file has been charged for the outstanding balance of $3,450. A receipt has been emailed to you. We're disputing it, Kara yelled as she climbed into the driver's seat. I'm calling my lawyer. As is your right, Sasha said. However, please note that the EV Estates legal team has a 100% litigation success rate. Safe travels. The doors slammed. The engines roared. Rick's SUV peeled out first, spraying gravel onto my pristine lawn. He didn't even wait for Margot to fully buckle her seatbelt. Kara's SUV followed, swerving slightly as she sped down the driveway. They were gone. The dust cloud settled slowly in the morning air. I walked out onto the balcony. Sasha stood in the driveway, looking at the retreating taillights. She looked up at me and gave a crisp salute. Hostile takeover repelled, she called up. Casualties? I asked. Only their pride, she said, and their bank account. I looked at the timestamp on my phone. 10:45 a.m. They had lasted less than 20 hours. Clean the guest wing, I instructed. Burn the sheets if you have to. I want every trace of them gone by noon. Yes, madam. I stood there for a long time. The silence returned. It was deep and heavy, but it wasn't empty. It was full of the sound of the ocean, the wind in the eucalyptus trees, and the quiet, steady beat of my own heart. I had won. I had defended my castle. But as I looked at the empty driveway, I felt a strange, hollow ache in my chest. It wasn't regret. I knew I had done what was necessary. It was the morning of an illusion. The illusion that I had a family who loved me for me, not for what I could give them. That illusion was dead. Billed $3,450 for its funeral. I went back inside. I walked to the mantel where I had hidden the photo of Kara. I took it out of the drawer. I looked at her smiling young face. I didn't put it back on the mantel. I put it in the trash. The next morning was the kind of Malibu morning that real estate agents dream of. The fog hugged the coast, soft and gray, before burning off to reveal a sky of piercing, impossible blue. I woke up without an alarm. I made my coffee, strong, black, and walked out to the deck. I expected to be alone. I wasn't. Two figures sat on the bottom step of the porch stairs, huddled together like castaways. Their suitcases were stacked neatly beside them. Kara and Todd. They weren't in the SUV. The others must have left them, or they had refused to go. I stopped at the railing. They heard my footsteps and looked up. Kara looked wrecked. Her eyes were swollen, her face blotchy. The arrogance, the influencer sheen, was completely stripped away. She looked like she had when she was 12 and had broken my favorite vase. Terrified and small. Todd looked at his feet. I didn't speak. I just sipped my coffee and waited. The silence stretched, taut as a wire. Finally, Kara stood up. She walked slowly to the edge of the deck, stopping 10 feet away from me. She didn't cross the invisible line. "They left," she said, her voice raspy. Margot kicked us out of the car. She said I ruined the vacation. She said I was useless. Margot is a difficult woman, I said neutrally. "She's a monster," Kara whispered. Then she looked at me. "But so was I." She took a breath, a shuddering intake of air. "I'm sorry, Mom." It wasn't the whine of a child caught stealing cookies. It was heavy. "I'm sorry I tried to use you," she continued, tears spilling over. "I'm sorry I threatened you with the home. I was so desperate to impress them. I wanted them to think I was important. I wanted them to think I had power. And you thought power meant controlling me," I said. "Yes," she admitted. I thought you were just there. Like the furniture. I didn't see you." She wiped her face. "I know I can't stay. I know I owe you. God, a lot of money. But I just wanted to say it. You were right. About everything." She turned to Todd. "Come on. We can call an Uber from the highway." They picked up their bags. The sound of the zippers clinking was loud in the quiet morning. I watched them turn to walk down the long, dusty driveway. They had no ride, no plan. Just the luggage and the shame. This was the moment. The moment in all the movies where the mother runs down the stairs, hugs the repentant child, and says it's all forgotten. I didn't run. I stood still. I let them walk past the fountain. I let them reach the gate. Because forgiveness without consequences is just permission to sin again. "Kara," I called out. She stopped. She turned, hope flickering in her eyes like a candle in a draft. "The bill stands," I said. Her shoulders slumped. "I know. We'll pay it. I don't know how, but we will." "Good," I said. "You can set up a payment plan with Sasha." I took another sip of coffee. "However," I continued, "the guest wing is currently vacant, and I believe the staff quarters, the small room by the garage, is available." Kara stared at me. "It has a single bed," I said. "No view. The towels are scratchy, and there is a chore list. The garden needs weeding." I pointed to the overgrown patch of bougainvillea near the garage. "If you are willing to work off a portion of your debt," I said, "you may stay for 2 days, as staff, not as guests." Kara looked at the small dark window of the room by the garage, the room she had tried to shove me into. She looked at Todd. He nodded, a look of immense relief washing over his face. "We'll take it." Kara said. I'll weed. I'll clean the pool. Whatever you want. Excellent, I said. Sasha has the gloves. Report to her in 10 minutes. I turned my back on them and looked out at the ocean. I heard them walking back up the driveway. Not to the front door, but to the side entrance. The service entrance. I felt a lightness in my chest I hadn't felt in years. It wasn't the warm, fuzzy glow of maternal affection. It was the clean, cool sensation of respect. They were finally treating me like a person, like the owner. I raised my mug to the horizon. The sun was fully up now, burning off the last of the fog. The water was a brilliant, hard diamond blue. It was going to be a beautiful day. And for the first time in a long time, it was going to be my day. If this story resonated with you, leave a like and consider subscribing. You can also drop any comment below, even just one word. Maybe tell me where you're watching from, or what time it is right now. Sometimes one word is enough to say you were here.